Good evening, everybody, and hello. The clocks have gone forwards, and we are doing our very best, aren't we, to believe we're in summertime. I went for a walk today, and it was flipping freezing. I had 3 layers on, my hat, my gloves, and it's April, so I don't know what's going on with the weather. But for all you flyers out there, trust me, it's not long now. Of course, we can go out and take passengers flying very, very soon. So keep the faith. So whilst you're all, tucked up by the fire and wondering what to do, I do have a treat for you this evening. Of course, it's our Inspirability Talks. We've been doing this for well over a year now, and I really do have a treat for you all this evening. We're steering away from aviation, and we're putting the spotlight back onto disability, and actually talking to someone who has, if ever there's someone who's, pushed the boundaries, breaking those barriers down. And bringing disability, into everybody's homes. It's my guest this evening. But before we get to our guest, I just want to remind you all why we're here. We're here to raise money. We're here to come together as a community, and we're here to keep this wonderful charity, Airability, alive. Through your donations and through raising awareness, we can keep the work of Airability all year round, and to really underline the survivability of what we do. So on the bottom there, you can see you can donate to us. We have our Just Giving page. You can go through to the website and you can donate as much or as little as you like to keep this brilliant organisation going. You can also download these webinars through Apple Music, Spotify as a podcast. And if you are watching live this evening, I do encourage you to please put your questions forwards, share and comment and like all you like, because we're going to have a really fun discussion this evening. So without further ado, of course, it is my guest. You'd have seen on social media that we're talking to Alex Brooker this evening. Now, I'm going to give a quick intro to Alex, and then we'll bring Alex up on the screen. So Alex is a journalist, presenter and comedian, and he actually has a degree in journalism that he got in 2006. And got his job, first job in journalism at the Liverpool Echo, and then also at the Press Association, before taking the plunge and applying to the Channel 4 £500,000 talent search to become a presenter on Channel 4 for the 2012 London Paralympics with our very own Arthur Williams. And I believe that Alex did go through some of that training with Arthur, so I'm going to be a few little stories there, I'm sure. But that's where Alex's career kicked off, and of course you'll probably know him from The Last Leg, which was a program that was created at the time for the Paralympics. 20 series now that's been running, and it's one of my favourite shows. It's edgy, it's entertaining, it's great fun for Friday night viewing. But of course he's done other work as well, which we'll hear about this evening: The Jump, the Superhuman Show, Sink or Swim. But one that really got me, and I think one that really helped me understand more about our community here at Airability, was the Disability and Me documentary on Alex's life. So I think, but topping all of that actually is the fact that he's a Gunners fan. Now, my granddad was born at the Arsenal, so that's something that Alex and I share. We're both Gunners fans, so we can say the good and the bad and the ugly about the team this evening. I'm sure they're not listening. So without further ado, Alex, welcome to the Inspirability Talks.
Hello, thanks for having me. That was quite an intro.
Well, I do say that, when we do these intros, our guests just see their lives, sweep before their eyes in about 3 or 4 minutes. So I hope it wasn't too scary.
No, it wasn't. I quite like you sounded slightly surprised when you went, yeah, he's got a journalism degree. And sometimes with some of the television I do, very often it's easy for me to forget that I did once get a degree. Last series of Last Leg, I was dressed as a parrot for a bit of it. So that was, the journalism degree hasn't been fully used, I must say.
I'm sure you've fallen back on it somewhere along the way. So how's lockdown been? I mean, my goodness, it's over a year. I mean, I'm assuming you've managed to work.
Yeah, we were very lucky with Last Leg that we were able to continue the show last year. During the first lockdown, we just finished the series, then we went into the first lockdown, and we managed to do a series from home where we kind of all broadcast from our own homes. I mean, Hills was in Australia, I was up in Huddersfield, and Josh was in London. So it was quite the technical feat by the crew to get it up and running, but it was good fun. And it was so needed at that point. I just miss, you know, the best thing about last leg is the fact that I just sit there on a Friday night and laugh, and that's what I want to do socially anyway. And that's it was really kind of, we're really lucky to get back and do the show. And then of course, as restrictions have changed and things have eased and whatnot, we've been able to be back in the studio for some series. Most recently, we finished about a month ago. So yeah, it's been helpful, and it was very helpful to you know, be traveling back down to London rather than kind of being stuck in the house with the kids all the time. Because don't get me wrong, I love them, they're amazing, but my God, I'll tell you what, the first day of lockdown, when I was like looking after them on my own, just ran out of ideas, and I'd completely lost the dressing room. I mean, my kids are 2 and 4, and they were running amok, and the day ended with me just letting them draw on my face. And it was I mean, it was just like that. That was the first day of lockdown. So yeah, it was it was an interesting time, but it's, you know, for everyone it's been challenging, and I feel very lucky that I've been able to keep working, really.
Yeah, of course. And well, so what are we now? 370 odd days in, and my eldest has turned into a 14-year-old teenager. So it's amazing. She's literally gone through the change for the last year, and yeah, lockdown easing couldn't have come any quicker. Let's say that. But she's an angel. She's daddy's girl. So let's take the clock back, Alex. I mentioned, you know, about this journalism degree, and then your job at the Liverpool Echo, and then Press Association. So was this an ambition you had from a young age to go into journalism?
You know what, I was ever, like, some kids don't know what they want to do. I wanted to be a football journalist when I was, like, literally from the age of about 10. I decided that's what I wanted to do. I want to be a football journalist. That's all I wanted to do. I remember writing my first match report I remember Arsenal got beat in the Cup Winners' Cup final in 1995. So I was 11. That was my first match report I wrote, and yeah, that's all I wanted to do. And I kind of went to Liverpool from Kent to university because it's a big football city, a big sporting city. I wanted to kind of, you know, we grew up in a town. I wanted to try a bit of city life, which was awesome. And so, yeah, I just wanted to be a football journalist. And then kind of when I got into the industry, do you know what? I'd completely not taken into account it. Journalists, sports journalists, football journalists work when football's on. So it was every weekend, every Christmas, Boxing Day, Christmas Eve. And don't get me wrong, it was a fun job, but after a while it was like, God, I want my life back. And actually watching football became a job, and it didn't become as enjoyable anymore. So that was when I started to look for other jobs, other journalism jobs, and stumbled across Channel 4.
Yeah, so well that leads us in perfectly to probably what the career is really to date, isn't it? Channel 4, and I mean, some incredible work you've done, and this £500,000 talent search. I mean, how did you find out about that? And talk us through the whole experience.
Yeah, just the title of it is sometimes misleading, because a lot of people sit and think, oh, he got £500,000. Believe me, if I'd have got £500,000 out of it, I wouldn't have done some of the rubbish I've done on telly so far. He didn't. That was like the investment. That was the whole thing. It wasn't like, you win this. It's not, you know, it weren't like the Euro Millions or something like that. It was just that was the kind of the £500,000 was like the investment into finding new disabled talent. And I remember just looking for other jobs. And that year, 2010, when I applied, I'd just been on a development squad for rifle shooting for Paralympics GB. And it was one of those things where I ditched the rifle shooting because it was just training to be an athlete. I just wasn't cut out for it. And I wasn't cut out for it mentally either. And I kind of ditched that and gone back up to Leeds to work. And then I remember seeing an advert for Channel 4's £500,000 talent search. It kind of said, are you disabled? I was like, yeah. Do you have a background in journalism or the media? I was like, yeah. It was like, do you have a background in Paralympic sport? I was like, bloody hell, I've got all three of these here. And I applied for it. I'd never thought about being on television or anything like that, but I applied for it, but mainly on the basis that I just thought, there can't be that many of us knocking about. Yeah. I mean, I knew loads of other journalists. So I didn't know how many of them were disabled. So I was thinking, God, I must have like a 1 in 4 chance of getting this here. And I remember you had to upload a video onto YouTube, and I've kind of, yeah, it was what you do, 3 minutes of Channel 4 airtime. And I remember the day I was filming it. So yeah, it's popping up now. I remember filming it. My mate had a small production company, and he did kind of school prospectuses and stuff like that. And the day I left it to the last day, that video, to record it, because I was just like, I'm not gonna do. I'm never going to be on telly. So I remember when I was doing my journalism degree, I was told that my voice was too common for broadcast and stuff like that. And yeah, it was. I dismissed it, and I remember it getting to the last day of the applications, the last day you could upload it. And I rang up my mate. I said, do you fancy doing that video today? Have you got time? He was like, no, sorry, I can do it later. And I genuinely said to Mum, no, I've got a haircut later. Don't worry about it. That was fresh, by the way, that hair. That was fresh, which is a worry. But I remember saying, I'm going to go and have my haircut. And I remember coming back. And I literally, if he'd never called me back, I never would have applied for Channel 4. And he rang me and he was like, I've seen this 3-minute idea you've got. It's really funny. I've got like half hour now. Let's come and do it. Come and do it quickly on your way. And I literally, if he'd never have called me, I never would have applied. And I sent that video in, and I was very fortunate. You know, they had so many applications. We got taken to a boot camp. We did screen tests and stuff like that. And then we kind of all got put into training together. And that's where I met Arthur. And yeah, my job, I was there to be a reporter. I wanted to be a proper touchline reporter, you know, maybe go on and go on to Sky Sports, be a touchline, you know, post-match interviewer. And that was all I wanted to do. And it's crazy to think that I did one day of it at the Paralympics. I did the opening ceremony, and then I went on to the last leg, and I was put on the sofa for the first 5 minutes to introduce me to the audience as I was going to be their roving reporter for the week. And then the second day I came in, and Channel 4 were just like, we really liked you on the sofa with Adam and Josh. Do you want to stay on there? And we don't want you to be doing any more reporting. And I was thinking, God, what's wrong with my reporting? And before I knew it, I said, yeah, why not? It was good fun. And I never went back to being a what's called a serious reporter, so to speak. And from that day on, I went to do comedy. And look, I'm very well aware that I was very lucky. I was in the right place, maybe at the right time in terms of kind of the chances I got. But it's been amazing, to be honest with you, mate, to be in television, because I've thought about it long and hard kind of since I applied for Channel 4. And I'll be honest with you, one of the main reasons why I nearly didn't apply is because when I grew up, I never saw really that many disabled people on television. I didn't, you kind of had Adia Depetan was kind of around as I'd got older. But when I was younger, you never saw any disabled people really on television. And I always thought there must be a reason for that. Maybe society doesn't want us on there. And that was one of the big things why I was reticent. I thought, it's a scheme. It's like a thing. It's like, is it going to work? Are we on there for sub stories? That's what kind of more traditionally you'd see disabled people on television as is kind of, it would be a sub story and stuff like that. And I really worried about it. And I think that, to be honest with you, that's a big reason why I nearly didn't reply. And I look back now and I feel quite sad for myself that I felt that way. And probably, one of the biggest things I'll ever achieve is maybe that when people have seen me or they saw Arthur as well, they'll go, well, actually, they've got disabilities and they're on. So maybe there are chances for us as well. And it's been a real big kind of shift for me. But as I said, I'm extremely lucky, really am.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Alex. And it reminds me of a project Ability did a couple of years ago. So we created the world's first all-disabled air display team with pilots, drawn from the forces, who've had various injuries, and that completely changed the playing field in what is, as you'd imagine, a pastime that, has a lot of people who do not have a disability, but it just broke down barriers. It was proving that it is a level playing field. And actually, until you start challenging those perceptions, people just follow through, don't they? They just don't see that what did we say? 20% of society has some sort of ailment, condition, or disability. So why can't we represent society in these pastimes?
And it's true, John. It's like what we were saying before we came on, and I was saying about when I was younger, when I was a teenager, the idea of me driving seemed like a really big one. And I drive an unadapted car, and I passed in the manual and stuff like that. But when I was younger, it was kind of one of those things where I'm not sure you'll be able to do this. And certainly the idea of flying as a disabled person, it kind of seems, even to me, is something that I'd assume that I would never be able to do. And then you see work that people like yourselves do, and it changes. It changes your perceptions, even as a disabled person. We can, I think sometimes there's a feeling within society that people assume automatically that you can't really do anything. People look at me and the most menial tasks, they'd look at me and they'd think, Christ, he'd win Britain's Got Talent. You see me cut up a steak, what I mean? People would be like, bloody hell, how's he done that? And to me, it's just cutting up food. But there's always that feeling that we can't really do a lot. And sometimes it can impact on you. It's like golf. All my dad and my brothers have all played golf. All my pals play golf. I've always just I've not even gone to entertain it, Matt. I've never tried it. And then I was on Instagram last year and I see a fella with arms that are like shorter than mine. And he had like an elongated club and stuff like that. And I was just like, and he's hitting it. I mean, properly like driving the ball. And I was just like, I never realised that was something that you'd be able to do. Never realised you could get an adapted club and hold it underneath your arm and stuff like that. And it's sometimes it's easy to have those misconceptions and even within yourself and doubt yourself. And that's why it's amazing to see people challenging what you'd assume would be the norm, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, just going on to the last leg, of course, that's sort of the journey, isn't it? The last leg's taken. I mean, it had well, tell us about the last leg, first of all, and its inception. I mean, we all know about it and we all witnessed its progression. But what I really love, and just going on to your point, Alex, about sort of breaking down barriers and the fact that, we're all on an equal playing field regardless, is I feel like Josh Widdicombe. I know I'm not blonde and haven't got curly hair, but in terms of variability, I'm the imposter. So I don't have a disability, and of course, disability can come in many shapes and forms, visible or invisible. And what I really love about the last leg, representing a disabled charity, is how you can make light of these issues, which, because we're British, we find it very difficult to talk about, don't we? And we overcompensate and we say really silly things because we think they're silly, but actually they're not silly at all. It's just we're all part of the same society.
Yeah, and it's for me, kind of my journey in terms of that humour that we see on Last Leg Now has been it's changed a lot. When I joined the shooting team in 2010, I'd never really been around that many other disabled people before. And it was quite strange to be in like a social atmosphere with other disabled people, and they'd be calling each other Crips and stuff like that, and I was just like, wow, I'm not sure about this, and it made me feel really self-conscious about it. And that's, in the end, that's why I left, is because it made me feel too self-conscious about being a disabled person, and that was a long time ago. And I'm glad that I got to kind of my attitude towards myself and doing therapy and stuff like that before, straight after I left the shooting team, I did some therapy. And then weirdly enough, when I went on to Last Leg, I remember meeting Adam, and I remember we did a pilot. So it was just internally. So it's just for them to see how the show might work. And I was asked to be a stand-in. I can't remember who I was meant to pretend to be. It was just to give Adam someone to talk to. And I think I was meant to pretend to be like someone like David Williams. The idea was that David Williams had been a guest and I'd pretend to be him to see how this show would work. And I remember before the show, I'd never really spoken to anyone else with a prosthetic leg that much. And I remember Adam just shut. I was like, how does yours work then? And he's got like this back door that he kind of opens up, and that's how he gets his in. And then I was showing him mine. And I remember just like, it was just backstage, and the producer was just like, have that conversation when you go out there in a minute. Just have it exactly as you just have now. Just talk to each other. No setup. And I was just like, all right, and no worries. And I think that's probably what got me on the show. Because as I said, I didn't have any real broadcast background. Like, people would still argue now that I'm not particularly funny, but I didn't see myself as a comic person back then. Certainly never really used to do loads of jokes about my disability. Not loads. Every now and again there'd be funny things that would happen and we'd laugh about it with me and my pals, but not like kind of the jokes as I did them now. And it was weird being on there because I kind of learned, I don't know, I did the 2012 Paralympics and you're on there and we were talking about stuff that I've never spoken about before, let alone the rest of the public seeing it. I'd never spoken about half of this stuff. And the is it okay questions that came in, I'd never really thought about them and stuff like that. And for me, it was such an eye-opener, and just being around the Paralympics, you know, this idea of just all these incredible disabled people. And it was such a privilege to be there. And we did the last leg, and I'll be honest with you, doing the show has made me more comfortable about being disabled. There's no doubt about it. It's kind of a weird thing, but it's like I started therapy on a sofa in 2010, and then I started doing it on telly every Friday, and that is genuinely that's how I feel, and it's helped me kind of gain more of an acceptance of who I am and stuff like that. And I've been, again, when you talk about, I've been in television for nearly like eight years broadcasting, 9 years broadcasting now. And it's like, not all television you get to do is as rewarding, and you get something out of it. And that's how I feel about Last Leg. And, you know, I am sometimes, one of the biggest things I've always been self-conscious of, certainly within the Last Leg, and we are very much as a show like that, is the idea that, you know, I'd hate to make a disabled person feel uncomfortable, because what I may feel comfortable joking about they may not do. And it's very hard sometimes, just because we're all disabled doesn't mean we're all the same, doesn't mean it's no different to any other form of society. No, like disabled people aren't the same. There's so many, it's such a broad, you've got one term disability, and my experiences are so different to other people's, and they might have had different experiences to me and stuff like that. And again, it's what they may enjoy, what they may be comfortable with, it's subjective to them and stuff like that. And it is a hard thing for us, because we've always wanted to represent disabled people in the best way we can, the 100% of the always. And sometimes you think, you know, there's some, in terms of the humor and stuff like that, and the jokes we want, it's always coming from a good place, we feel, but we've always been very self-conscious because there aren't that many disabled kind of led shows on television. So we're very lucky to be one of the few, and you feel a sense of responsibility with that. And we always have done. And certainly over the years, weird enough, I think that, you know, with Josh, I don't believe he gets the credit he deserves for what he did at the 2012 Paralympics, because that's a hard gig for an able-bodied comedian to come into, and suddenly you know, it's like we're joking about disability, and it's like, can he join in on this? He doesn't really, and also he didn't know me, he didn't know Hills, and obviously as time's gone on now, it's effortless. He's my friend as well. You know, I love him dearly. It's just as well because we see so much of each other at work, and now he can joke about stuff that certainly I think people sometimes assume that he, like the first show of Last Leg, he was like joking about my hands and Hills' leg and my leg and stuff like that. He wasn't. He eased into it very much so, like you would with anyone in a friendship. And yeah, I think we've been so lucky, and it's been so much fun to be on that show. And yeah, and the fact we're still going as well, still going strong, still, you know, racking up the episodes. And again, it's credit to Channel 4 for giving us that room to do something different. It's very hard, you know, TV, especially in the current climate, especially with Twitter and instant reactions and things like that. You have to be very careful about what you say and what you do now, and for fear of offence and stuff like that. And they took a chance with us, and they gave us room to mould it. And I think we've reaped the benefits of it. And I hope that they have as well. But we are very lucky.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because, you know, my next question to you is, what has made The Last Leg such a success? And perhaps one of those ingredients is that it's okay. You know, it's okay to talk about disability in the way that you do, because, you know, two of you are disabled, and so, you know, people looking, well, if Alex can say it, then, you know, it's not a taboo subject.
Yeah, but yeah, it is, but it's just in general though, just being out there is a big deal. I know it sounds like something like crazy to say, but just being on telly or just be chatting about it doesn't even have to be about disability. Just being able to have a chat about anything and talk about your experiences, and it almost breaks down. Again, there is this kind of underlying feeling sometimes that we don't really do anything, and it's like it's so the representation of disability on screen. It's like, you know, we do have relationships and stuff like that, and we have kids, and they're not all disabled too, and it's, you know, it's just not all, you know, and stuff like that. And there's so many misconceptions around disability. So just let alone talking about it, just being out there and just talking about nights out. And I think to some people it'd be like, Crush, what, you all go out, do you? It's like, yeah, we do literally like loads of the same stuff as everyone else. And I think that there's that element of it is a big deal. And also, yeah, as I said, within the conversations we've had, I don't know, maybe sometimes people are too nervous to ask the question. And I think that I'm kind of a more positive about stuff like that. I don't see it as necessary. When people are nervous around disabled people, I don't always see it as a negative. I see it as basically as a society in general. We want to be polite. People are awkward interacting with other people at the best of times. At work, it's awkward. It doesn't matter whether you're disabled or not. It's those early interactions are always awkward. And I think that with disabled people, it adds like a different level, because it's basically you want what people are doing when they're awkward. I feel certainly with me when I've gone, you know, when I was a journalist, you go and shake people's hand and stuff like that, and they kind of do a double take for a second, and they be slightly nervous, and it's like, oh no, it's all right. Like, you know, if they go, how do we do this? And they'll be like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to ask that. So no, that's that. If I was you, that's a question I'd ask. So I think inherently what we're trying to do is they're trying to not make the other person feel awkward, but obviously it makes them more awkward, which does, and it's self-perpetuating. But inherently we want to be polite. And I think that comes from a good place. It does come from a good place. And I think that the more desensitized people get, the more they see more disabled people in television or educate themselves. It's about educating yourself as well. And as a disabled person, even I do. Even I've educated myself around disability. It's not like I went into it and I was like, I know how to interact with disabled people all the time. For example, last week I was on a shoot and I was doing it with some people in wheelchairs, and I just said, like, they were like, "Oh, come and crouch down for this." And I was like, "Oh, are you all right with that then?" So like, I generally, because I didn't know, because I don't want to be stood up and stuff like that. And I don't think there's any. I personally didn't see as much harm in that. Don't be a jerk about it, but I was kind of, you know, you let them like lead that situation, and hopefully after a while, it just becomes. Disability is just one aspect of who I am. It's one aspect of all disabled people are. It doesn't always, it doesn't completely dictate everything about our lives. I don't get up in the morning, put on my leg and think, bloody hell, I've just put on a leg. You just do. And you know, I don't, you know, for example, like I don't know why I keep going back to this steak reference, but I don't cut up some food and go, cool, bloody hell, like, just done that with little arms. I'm just doing. You just do, and that's it doesn't have to be. It's made. Sometimes it can be made to be a bigger thing, I feel, than what it is.
Yeah, quite. No, and I've observed that around their ability. You know, as we were saying before we came on, you know, we fly thousands of people, and every person who comes in the door will have a condition, but you know, that condition will affect them in different ways, you know. So it's just about normalizing it. My kids have been around their ability since they were born, and they go for rides on Arthur's wheelchair, just another person, you know. And I you know, looking at it from where I see things, you know, I feel it's thanks to, you know, the Last Leg and people like you and Adam and others who are now on screen, that society is being brought round to that way of thinking. And it's sad that it has to be that way, but you know, you've got to put it out there and make people sort of understand that we're all on the same boat.
Yeah, you do. And there is a feeling, you know, amongst disability, you know, and kind of people talk about the medical model of disability and the social model of disability, and kind of the idea that actually it's what disables us more isn't necessarily our physical restrictions, but the idea that it's actually society and the barriers within society is more what you'd call disabling. And I think there is some credence in that. You know, I've been out when we were on the Channel 4 trainee scheme with the other guys in the wheelchairs, and we'd go out and there'd be places that weren't accessible, and there'd be, you know, bars and stuff like that where they weren't. I remember going out and like a couple of them weren't allowed in, and it was just like, I just thought, that's not on. That's not. I don't feel like as a society, if we want to make progress, stuff like that shouldn't be happening. Shouldn't be going in disabled toilets and it be, you know, it's where they store all the crates of Smirnoff Ice. Do you know what I mean? It's not. Yeah. It's like that sort of thing, and I feel like that sort of thing is where we need, on a basic level, just giving us the opportunities just to live lives as everyone else is a really big thing. And I think that certainly within this pandemic, I think that for a lot of people, you know, the idea that we've been locked in, the idea of being shut in, we can't go out. Actually, for some disabled people, that's a reality. The lift goes. When I did my documentary a couple of years ago, or last year when it went out, when we filmed for that, and I was talking to one of the contributors, and he was talking about how when the lift went down in his apartment block, he couldn't go out. And it's like, and again, it's that's a reality for a lot of disabled people a lot of days, and that's a really big, I think maybe it should have been an eye-opener as a society in general, that we've got to look after each other more. And I hope that is kind of where we go with it. Obviously, I'm being a very big optimist saying that, because chances are, as soon as stuff opens, I mean, the first thing everyone's going to do is just get drunk, and then we'll probably try and forget about it all. You know.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're going to go flying at Airability, and of course, we did say before we came on that there is no excuse. You have to come for a flight with us.
I would love to. I genuinely would. I love, as I said, stuff that even I'd assume I wouldn't be able to do. That's like a really big. So I'd absolutely love to. Again, that's what I want to do. I want to do more things whereby I'm challenging what even I believe I can do, let alone what society thinks I can do, what I think I can do. And, you know, I've done shows at Sink or Swim and stuff like that, where that was a big part of the challenge of it was not just obviously the same physical challenge as everyone else, but define myself as to what I believed I could do. And I enjoy that. And again, like golf, if I come out of 2021, I've taken up golf and flying. God, what a year that would have been!
Exactly.
What an eclectic mix that would have been. So they're the aims for 2021. Obviously, after June 21st, I'm just going to be going out and getting drunk. But after that, I'll start to try and pick up new stuff. So I've already learned opera and Italian this year for Comic Relief. We did opera for Comic Relief, me and 4 other comedians, and that was we did Ness and Dorma live on night. That's the most, I can genuinely tell you, that's the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done. I've never been as frightened as I've never shaken in all my time on television. I've never physically shook with nerves. I did slightly the first time I did the opening ceremony at 2012 and interviewed David Cameron, who was the then Prime Minister, and that was my first interview. First thing I'd ever done on live national telly. Then I was nervous. But yeah, the other week doing the opera, trying to sing like Pavarotti. God,
so who taught you? Who was your coach? Who was your voice coach?
I had an amazing coach called Graham Broadbent. He was with the English National Opera. It was with them, and it's one of the best things I've ever done. It was horrible in many ways in terms of the nerves, and obviously I can't sing. I wasn't particularly great when we done it, so it was so difficult. But what an exhilarating, just putting yourself out there. And I think in general the public seem to respond well to that, and I think that's maybe what's helped me within my television career. Is that I've never been afraid to put myself out there and make myself vulnerable as well, because make myself vulnerable on screen. A lot of people, you know, they keep their feelings in, whereas very much on television, many times, you know, Sink or Swim, my documentary, I very much put myself out there, because I don't know how else to be. That's how I am. I remember when I was training for Channel 4, trying to be this like posh reporter, and it just didn't work. It didn't work for me. And it was only once I started to become myself or be myself that things picked up for me a bit. You know, I wasn't like Arthur sat in the chair, in the presenter's chair, and was just like, it's like he'd been doing it for years already. I remember, and it was just like, he's got this, like, he looked good as well. He looked good on camera, which I was annoyed about. I remember, like, he looked good in a suit, looked good in a suit jacket. He's got a good upper body, really good in a suit jacket. And he was really, when he did auto cue and stuff like that, and he had a good broadcast voice, strong. And then there was just like, there was just me, and I'd be like, all right, welcome to the Paralympics.
Well, if Arthur can fly a plane, then, you know, you've got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
So we'll look forward to that. So you're talking about, you know, showing your vulnerable side and just being who you are. And I saw Sink or Swim, and, you know, it was so endearing and just, gripping, frankly, because it's the human stories there, isn't it? Tell us about that experience. How did you get into it? What was the reason?
Do you know what? I was just asked, but the Channel 4 said we're going to do a relay across the channel. And I swam a bit when I was younger, but not a great deal. And I just thought, do you know what? It'd be a hell of a challenge if we can do it. And I didn't really think much past it. And yeah, it was so difficult, just physically. You know, I was trying to swim like everyone else, trying to swim on my front and stuff like that. I mean, God, I tell you what, I've got some good traps out of it though.
Yeah.
Blimey, I'd give anything to have them back at the moment. I haven't trained for ages in the gym, but yeah, I did all right out of it in terms of like trying to get like physicality. But it was so difficult. And the first swim in Lake Windermere, a lot of people saw where I got quite emotional and I couldn't do it. And I'm not used to not being able to do stuff. And I felt for a moment like I couldn't do it. And I remember like feeling like, I kept thinking like, why at the time, all I kept thinking is the reason why I can't do this is because of my arms and my legs. And it wasn't really only after I got out and I got through it. Actually wasn't. I was hyperventilating when I got in. It's because I didn't acclimatize. So anyone could have done that. And that was, I jumped in 15-degree water, which isn't that cold, but I went to go after 30 seconds and I was just still hyperventilating. So every time I put my head underwater, I couldn't get any breath in. So I wasn't going nowhere. And then I got more panicked. Then I got cold water shock. And that was nothing to do with my arms and leg. And it was only when I got on my back and I swam like I used to when I was a child that I managed to get through it. And then we trained myself on my back, and I did my bits in the channel on my back, and it was so tough. If we'd have had more time, I'd have spent time training on my front. But it was just try and do what you're best at. But obviously, when it's in a lake, it's a lot easier when it's calmer. When you're in the sea, like we found, especially the second one of my swims, waves coming over the top of my head because I couldn't time my breath, so I was just swallowing so much water, like being sick and everything afterwards. It was tough, and it was tough the outcome, because we swam through the night and we could see France. I remember coming out and this storm came in, and I remember going in, and it was really choppy. I remember the coach, Ross Edgley, and like he'd swam around Britain. He was such a great guy. And I remember him texting me before I went in for my second swim going, we've got this out. Let's nail it. Because he was like my guide swimmer. He's like, we'll nail this. And I remember just like, he's like, it's calmed down since your first swim. And then I got out there and literally straight away this wave hit me and I literally went flying into the boat. And I was just like, it hasn't calmed down. This is definitely... I've not swam in the sea a lot, but this is definitely worse than the first time I swam. And yeah, obviously it was pitch black. It was like 3 a.m. So you got your back up, just looking at the sky, and there's waves hitting you. And oh my gosh, it was tough mentally. And I remember getting out, and I remember Greg Rutherford just being like, mate, look, we're nearly there. And he was like, we'll finish this off. You won't even have to go in again. And then this storm came in, and yeah, it got snatched away from us. It was cruel because we had to stop the swim because of safety. They weren't allowed boats in the water, let alone people. So it was gutting. It was really gutting. I remember I was in tears. Loads of us were in tears. And I remember being sat in tears in the cabin. I remember Linford Christie just turned around and he just goes, put his arm around me, went, that's sport for you, mate. And it was like, Linford Christie has just turned around and he's like, he's the fastest man in the world, and he's just gone, that's sport. And I thought, that was it, and I'll get over it. But it was tough. It was tough, but I liked the challenge. Again, I liked the idea of, it was weird. I remember I kept saying that I know people are going to think like I couldn't do this or I can't do this. No one ever said that to me. I never had people tweeting me or sending me Instagram messages in the lead up to it or saying to me in person, going, you can't do this. It was all in my head. I was the person that was saying I couldn't do it. There was no, that idea of, I know these people are going to think I can't do it. There weren't any of them that I'd spoken to. It was just literally all in my head. So that, yeah, that was a tough one. That was really tough. I haven't been sea swimming since. I did for a while. I was like, I'll go and do it on my own one day. But I was like, nah, not doing that. Not doing that again. Absolutely not.
So, talking about just putting your soul out there, Alex. So one thing that I mean, what an emotional roller coaster the documentary was in your life, and looking at your disability from your perspective, and obviously involving your family, the Disability and Me program. Yeah. Tell us about that. I mean, I just found it entertaining. I found it endearing. I just didn't know what to think minute by minute. But what I did think at the very end of it, Alex, was that, here's someone who has probably, through putting yourself through that filming, has got a lot of people up off the couch, and just realised that life is for living. I mean, what an amazing experience that must have been.
It was really good. It was one of those things whereby I'd done the people that made it. I did a documentary for them on the NHS, on the history of the NHS the year before, or 2 years before, and they'd come to me and they said, would you like to do something else? And after I did Sink or Swim, and I did Sink or Swim, it was a few months after my dad sadly passed away suddenly, and I remember, I don't know, I kind of regretted not having more conversations with him about you don't talk about these things really, like about what it was like growing up, or what it was like for him as well, and for my mum as well, because once I had my own children, it changed. Something changed within me. It changed in the idea that I suddenly kind of got it from a parent's point of view, what it must have been like for them, and it made me think more about stuff. And yeah, I did the documentary, and it was a tough one, because again, there aren't that many disability documentaries, and it was hard because, really, if you're going to do a documentary about disability, I mean, it could be a whole series. It's, as I said to you before, it's such a broad church, and it was just obviously my own experiences, and it was, everything was filmed as you saw it. So there was never any, it's like there was a scene where me and my mum, we went through pictures of me as a kid, and I genuinely hadn't seen a load of them. Especially there was one where, before I'd had any operations on my hand, and I kind of went in and they filmed it as it was. It's why it's so raw. And I was just like, I genuinely was like, how the hell did they get surgeons get my hands to what it is now? And it was just stuff like that. It was really hard. It was really emotional. It was rewarding though. As I said before, again, it was another bit of television which I've made, which is very rewarding. I got a lot out of it personally. From a selfish point of view, it was talking about sub aspects of my life that I'd never talked about before, and having conversations with my mum that I'd never had before. God, I went to go and see a surgeon. I didn't like put myself, the idea of seeing surgeons, I'll turn my back on for a good 15 years or so, nearly 20 years I hadn't seen a surgeon. And it was just that sort of stuff was really big. It was really big because it was important. And again, it was filmed as you saw it. And I think that's why it was so raw. And my reactions are my natural reactions to everything. It wasn't kind of pre-shot to make it polished for television. It was as people saw it. And as I said, I never wanted to, weird enough, I remember the opening line of it is, I don't want to make one of those documentaries where it's like people feel sorry for the disabled person in it. I was like, I don't want to do that. And in the end, it was one of those ones where it did get emotional. It genuinely did. But it was amazing. I was so glad I did it. And, with television, with The Last Leg, it's, or any other show I do, it's not my show. I can hide. But if something goes wrong on Last Leg, I'll just blame one of the others. I'll be like, it weren't my idea. Or if people don't like it, it's like, that weren't my idea. but with obviously disability me, my name was in the title. And I very much put myself out there on it. And it was did make me feel very vulnerable in the lead up to it coming out, because as I said, television is, we're very fortunate in the career that we do in the public eye, but it is hard sometimes, the idea of kind of that lack of privacy. And I was exposing myself more, and I was exposing more of who I really am for the audience. And obviously if they don't like that, then it was obviously that's more of an indictment on me. So I was so nervous before it came out, but I was overwhelmed by how well received it was by people and how much of an impact it made to people, whether they were just parents or disabled people or not disabled people. That was the big thing. I was so glad that it meant something to different people. That was all we could have hoped for, really. That was all that we could have hoped for. And yeah, also, I got to see some surgeons and get a painkilling injection in my foot that I probably needed for the best part of 15 years. So I got something out of it as well.
No, it really was amazing TV, and I think it definitely appealed to the disabled community and the non-disabled community. But you actually touched on something in that program about this label, this disability label, and I suppose there's probably no better way of trying to just capture that part of society. But isn't it ironic that the word disability has the word ability in it? We play on that air ability, but there's so many great things that we're seeing now in the public domain, and long may that continue. And it's thanks to people like yourself, Alex, that allowed that to happen. I'm going to give you a bit of a break and let you grab a drink, because I just wanted to remind people to keep sending your questions in. So do like and comment, and please send me some questions to ask Alex. So we're gonna turn to some of the questions that we had sent in, Alex, in the last couple of days before this evening. No surprise, it's going straight back to the last leg. So there's some really good questions here. So here's one. On the last leg, what is the funniest question that has been asked by a viewer that you can think of?
I remember there were two. There's one that was kind of went a bit viral, and it was because the graphic for it flashed up without us knowing, so we never actually talked about it. But I think one of them, it was like, is it okay to hit my mate in a wheelchair if he's being a knob or something? I remember and we didn't know it even flashed up, so we're kind of talking on the show, and obviously the people at home had seen this question flash up. And the next day, we obviously had to address it because it was a big thing. It was a really, you can't just suddenly throw that one into the mix. The idea of people in wheelchairs being hit by other people, and it was more. I kind of took it as it was obviously I remember thinking, not sure on this one, but then I kind of thought of it about the idea of work. If it's your mate and it's playful and it's how you would act with anyone else, and why would you change it if they're disabled? And that's kind of the answer that I think we gave. The weirdest one, I remember someone said, right at the end of the 2012 Paralympics, someone said, love this, love the Paralympics, love watching it. Is it okay if I chop off my arm and go to Rio? And it was just and that's not how it first of all, self-mutilation isn't how it works. And also, you don't just turn up. I remember that's not how the Paralympics work. Not all the disabled people don't just turn up to the airport in whichever host city it is. They're not going to all turn up to Tokyo and they'll be like, oh, you've got one arm, you do this. That's not, there's a large element of training involved in it. It's elite sport. So I remember that was definitely the most stupid question, for want of a better phrase. But yeah, we answered it.
Well, there's another one here which I'm looking forward to the answer on this one. So one of the last leg best moments was with Chris O'Dowd and his Banksy story. Was this as funny in the studio as it was to watch?
It was incredible. Yeah, he was absolutely hammered. It was brilliant. I remember, you've got to bear in mind, we are live. Sometimes people forget that we're live. And I remember, I didn't see him before we went on very much, very briefly. But I remember when he got on, it was back in the days when now we kind of sit opposite each other. I remember him coming down and sitting down next to me on the sofa. I remember, I could smell booze. And I remember thinking, he's had a drink here before he'd even said anything. And I remember thinking, this is brilliant. I remember getting excited before he'd even spoke, because I was like, something good's about to happen. If he's hammered on here, who knows what he's going to say. I remember getting really excited. And I was so desperate to go to Josh. He's hammered here. Honestly, if you can smell, I can smell the booze in him. He's had a couple of bodies before he's come on or whatever. And it was, it was so funny. And, you know, okay, yeah, he'd had a drink, but it was live television. It was great fun. He was relaxed. He was very relaxed. We were all relaxed. It's one of my favourite moments.
Yeah, no, it was very entertaining. Okay, and then the last question we had come in here is, how do you prepare for each episode of the last leg?
Well, we have meetings. We'll have like a meeting Wednesday. We'll get together. Obviously now it's on Zoom, and we'll discuss kind of what stories we might want in, and ideas are pitched for sketches, endings, and whatnot. It's quite good because it's, you know, a lot of the stuff that we kind of I use in the shows is more often not is my not the first thing I'll come out with when I react to a story, and more often not some of that will be usable on the show. And yeah, it's as I said, we don't, in the rehearsals on a Friday, we don't rehearse the jokes, so that I don't know what Josh is going to say. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. Some of Adam's stuff obviously is in the script because he's the host, but with Josh and me, we never know what each other are going to say. And so obviously the laughter is genuine, and we've always wanted it to be that way. But there is some like proper like preparation that goes into it. I always enjoy Friday night, just before, about a couple of hours before we go on, if there's anything I'm worried about, if I think I'm going to say something, or if I've thought of an idea, you have to maybe just check that one with the lawyer, because as I said, it is live, and some of those are funny. Yeah, or sometimes in rehearsal, I'll deliberately say something so offensive, full well knowing that the powers that be are watching it, and then I'll have to go, I'm not going to say that, or stuff like that. But it is a lot of fun. It's it can be stressful. I still get nervous before every show. Still, just before we go on, I still always have that sick feeling just before I go on, and I always thought I'd lose it, but I don't. I never have done since. So yeah, but it's good fun.
Well, it's so the way I've always thought the last leg personally is the satire bit is great, and it's you're having conversations that everyone else is at the pub, you know, and where else in the TV do you get that? You know, it's just from the heart, isn't it? It's all spontaneous. It's great.
Yeah, it is, and certainly for me, a lot of the stuff I say is very much the sort of stuff you'd hear from someone after they've had a few drinks down the pub as well. So it very much plays into my skill set.
Right. Okay. So we got more questions now. So we're going to be jumping around now.
Cool.
Okay. Right. What would the Alex Brooker in 2010 think of the Alex Brooker in 2021?
Oh, I think that I think certainly just a different bloke now. Different bloke. Much more. I think the Alex Brooker in 2010 would be on this. By the way, I don't mean this in an arrogant way at all. Just before, I'm going to caveat that, but I think he'd be envious of the Alex Brooker in 2021. When I was 2010, I was so self-conscious. So God, when I walked out on the shooting and stuff like that, on the shooting team, I walked out on the shooting on the shooting team and stuff like that. When I walked out on that, I was in a bad place with my disability. I didn't want to face up to it in many ways. And yeah, I think that I'd be slightly envious now of where I've got to with it, and that comfortability. And got to bear in mind, a lot's happened in my life since, you know, those fears, those self-conscious things you worry about, having children and stuff like that. How am I going to hold my daughters or, you know, my kids? Back then, that was the sort of thing that would worry. And then obviously I realised once I had my children that those worries were just things that everyone goes through. It's not a disabled person thing. It's not exclusive to us. Everyone worries about dropping their kids and stuff like that. So it's those life experiences. Also, I wish I could have told Alex Brooker in 2010 that, mate, in a couple of years, you're going to get on telly. It's going to be mint. Honestly, just stop being so stressed out. You're going to absolutely bloody love this, honestly.
So here's this is a great segue from that one then. So there's a couple of questions in this. have you ever had imposter syndrome? And is it you just being you? So in other words, you know, you've just trodden your path and this is what was meant to be? Or have you sometimes thought, you know, how did I get here?
Every single day I've got imposter syndrome. It's one of those big things where even now with my therapist, I'll talk about it. It's one of the big things, and I think that it's a common thing in television. I think it's certainly for someone like me who came into it kind of out the blue, and I got, you know, obviously I got a lucky break on last leg, and sometimes there has been times where I don't think, you know, obviously I got on television through kind of the Paralympics and stuff like that, but it's not easy being on there, and I've had to work really hard to try and do what I do, and it's not always come easily, and sometimes I need to give myself more of a break on that. It is really hard, and you know, there was a moment, year before last, actually, it was just before I was doing the documentary, well, actually just at the start of the filming, I remember just having a crisis of confidence, and I remember saying to my producer at Last Leg, am I crap? Is this stuff that I'm doing rubbish? And he was like, what are you on about? He was like, you like listen to the audience. And I genuinely just thought, maybe I'm not meant to do this. And certainly in terms of imposter syndrome, it's why I've never done stand-up. I've done bits of it, but I've bottled it up until now. I really have bottled it. And it's because I'm worried that I'll do it and I won't be any good at it and stuff like that. And it was so weird. I literally was talking to my producer from Last Leg about it just today, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And it's a really big thing for me. It's like, because I think a lot of people will assume I've already done it, and look, I've just got to roll the dice. I've got to back myself. I've got to give myself, try and have some confidence in myself to get up. I do corporate jobs and stuff, and I tell jokes on a Friday, and yeah, that's my job, and I've got to believe in it now. I've got to believe in myself as you know, try and make some people laugh and back myself to do that. And yeah, it is a really big thing. Imposter syndrome is massive, and I think that there's very few people in television I've known that don't really have it, because it's such a, you're elevated into this kind of world of fame and television and stuff like that, and it's very it's really difficult sometimes to believe that you deserve the things that are happening to you. Also, do you know what? And this is a slightly deeper thing. I think as a disabled person, you're kind of always aware that maybe, like, I don't know, the idea that things aren't meant to be easy for me. Like everything I've done is, you know, it's always the idea that stuff I've overcome. And it's like the idea, you know, writing to me as a kid was just, I was just doing what all the other kids did. But obviously to my mum and dad and surgeons and stuff like that, it's a really big achievement. I just wanted to be the same as the other kids. And I think there's always this idea that you've overcome something, or maybe things aren't meant to be easy for you. Things aren't meant to go well. And there are times when it does go really well. And as soon as things do start to go well, I really panic about it. And maybe sometimes that's all kind of all related, really. And that's a much deeper answer than what I expect that person thought they were going to get. But it is very much imposter syndrome. And yeah, as I said, sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. And I may do stand up, and I may be absolutely rubbish, and that's a very realistic possibility, believe me. So yeah, I've just got to try. If I don't try, that's the big thing. I've got to give it a go. And,
yeah. You know, it's interesting, isn't it? You know, we are often, you know, the worst judge of ourselves, aren't we? We have that self-doubt, and you know, regardless of our situation or our past, and you know, I think, you know, but certainly I can't think of any better building blocks you've had, though, that you're able to take advantage of, and very best of luck with that, Alex.
Oh, thank you. No, it is. And also, you know, the idea of self-doubt, it's not exclusive to disabled people. As I said, everyone has it. You know, everyone has those moments within themselves. And because if we didn't, then it wouldn't make us very human, I don't think. And also, there is another thing where certainly with me, it drives me. It drives me. It certainly, if I wasn't worried about what I was putting out on television, I wouldn't care so much. That means I wouldn't care. So that there is a positive aspect to that as well. And it's a case of finding that balance between having enough self-doubt to drive you to be better, to be self-critical, but at the same time giving yourself a little bit of a break. And that's in everything in life, isn't it? It's not just your job. It can be, you know, everyone worries about stuff. Am I a good dad? Gave the kids the iPad for a couple of hours there, and I was like, is that? But I had work to do. I needed to keep them quiet, and it's like, yeah, again, you go, oh, no, it's not great parenting, is it? But you know, they were still in front of me, so.
If only you could go to parenting school, wouldn't it just be great?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. Look, there's a whole ton of questions here. This is from Rachel Broxton. Simple question, really. But what is next for you, Alex, in between the last leg?
Well, I mean, also, yeah, as I kind of mentioned, I'm writing stand-up at the moment. I've got an idea for a show that I want to do, and it's that's what I'd love to get into doing more. I'm very lucky. I've got a lot of great people that I can go to for advice on it. And so, yeah, that'll be the next big thing for me when the venues start opening, going out and starting to try the stuff out, try the material out and see how it goes, see what works, see what doesn't. And yeah, that'll be a big thing. And, you know, I've got different stuff in the pipeline really at the moment. I'd love to get a sitcom away. I don't think there's been enough disability sitcoms and stuff like that. And I'd love to get something like that away, whether I'm in it or not. I've kind of pitched ideas where I've been in it. I've pitched ideas where I'm not, and I've just written. So yeah, that's the dream. That's the big ones, and just different projects as well. Just different stuff really that's coming in and picking the next big thing. I'm very lucky because last leg we do a lot of them. We've got it's a Paralympic year as well. And so yeah, there's a lot of stuff ahead for me. The diary's really busy. I'm extremely lucky in that sense. And yeah, that's kind of fitting in something decent between. I was very lucky with the documentary. That was great. And then, you know, the last few weeks I was dedicating myself to opera, and that's the way television works sometimes. Some weeks a couple of months ago, and that wasn't on the agenda. And then all of a sudden I was living and breathing Ness and Dormer. So for a week, and opera singing for a month or for a couple of weeks. So yeah. Well,
wow, it beats being an admin assistant, doesn't it? That's for sure. Here's one from Mary Doyle. If you could choose which TV program to host, what would it be? And would you ever do a reality TV show?
Oh, I did, just on the reality TV show. I did I did the, like, back in the day, the I'm a Celebrity. They had like an after show on ITV2 afterwards, and I went out to Australia and did that. And I always thought, do you know what? I wouldn't mind giving it a go. I'm a Celebrity. That's the one I'd do. Strictly, I'm not so sure, and I've it's been muted to me before, the idea of doing it, and I do last leg in December's anyway, so I couldn't do it, but. Yeah, not strictly. I don't back myself as a dancer, and all. I wouldn't back myself as a dancer, but I'm a Celebrity. I wouldn't mind a go at. I'm a Celebrity. So yeah, that'd be the one. And sorry, what was the other part of it? Oh, with TV program to host. Yeah. Wow. I don't know. It'd be. Do you know what? I don't know. I wouldn't say last leg. Hills is that seat is Hills's. That seat is Hills's, and very rightly so. One show to host. Do you know what it'd be? It'd be something like, if I could choose one show to be in, if I could be in Gavin and Stacey, an episode of Gavin and Stacey, that'd be me done. Genuinely, that'd be. It was like my favourite show before I joined television. I still adore it now. When I met James Corden, I lost my mind. The idea of doing it. So, but actually, maybe like League of Their Own would be pretty fun to host. If James didn't want to do it, that'd be good to do one of those. So yeah, but I'm Gavin and Stacey. Oh God, I love that program so much. I'd love to be in an episode, even as an extra, just walking in the background in Barry.
Yeah. This is a great one from Neil Tucker. So Neil's one of our guys at Airability. He flies. Got a prosthetic leg as well. Love your work, Alex. Thanks for helping me laugh in my darkest hours and lampoon my disability. You can see it on screen now. My prosthetic leg makes a great ice bucket. What's the weirdest use you found for yours?
It's a good, but there's a good ice bucket. I've never used it as an ice bucket. I've drank from it before. And quite frankly, that was a bad idea. I think I drank from it on last leg, and I remember it just being like the booze they gave me was warm and the legs were warm, and it wasn't a particularly pleasant combination. But it's a weird. I remember when me and my mates, when we used to, we're like so this is about 2008. We used to go to a festival in Croatia, and it was like we'd go to the club that's on this festival site, and the booze was so expensive. We had no money. And I remember we used to buy little miniature bottles of like vodka. And I remember we used to stuff them down my leg because it's like hollow at the bottom where the socket joins the foot. And I remember we used to just put all these vodkas in there. And that was quite a weird, technically illegal, but yeah, that was a pretty weird, a weird use for it. What else have I used it for? I use it to get out of doing stuff. But like, you know, if, for example, if like one of the kids is like, you can hear on the monitor, like my daughter moaning saying she wants her duvet, and I'll say to my wife, "Oh, her duvet's come off," and she's like, "You go and do it." I was like, "I ain't got my leg on." Literally, as if it's something that's like a really big deal to put my leg on. It takes like a few seconds. So yeah, I've used it to get out of stuff.
Great. Okay, right. There's two more questions.
I also used it. Sorry, I used it Halloween when I was a kid. I used to use my spare to get him to put the sweets in the spare leg, just walking around with a foot. So yeah, that was also quite weird. I didn't think it was weird at the time. It worked. Absolutely cleaned up. Couldn't move for Haribo.
Right, here we go then. Do you ever have prosthetic leg envy? So surely you and Adam have a bit of a leg off.
Yeah, Hills has got some good ones. Do you know what I saw? I'm a kind of there was a lad who I was watching. I'm doing the show at the moment about disability football, and I was watching a young lad who's is kind of playing football on a blade. Essentially, it's like a blade foot. And it was kind of, I was obsessed with the mechanics of it and stuff like that. And yeah, it was that I very much had leg envy, but more so because his touch on the ball, but with a prosthetic foot. I've never seen in all my years. I've never seen anybody. He was doing keepy uppies on his prosthetic. And when you can't bend your ankle, I can't tell you how hard it is. It's but nigh on impossible to keep flicking the ball up. And this lad was doing round the worlds with his prosthetic. And I said to his dad, I was like, "How's he done this? How's he managed to do that?" And he was like, "Just practice for hours." And I was very jealous of his talent and his leg. You do get leg envy. I've got a good set now. I've got a couple. I've got like a one which has silicone cover on it and it's got hair on it and stuff like that, and that's pretty awesome. So I'm lucky. I do have some good legs, and I'm very lucky. The people who do mine, they're trying new stuff with me all the time. So yeah.
I love the comment. I think it was. Maybe it was your comment, I'm not sure. 3 blokes with 4 legs talking about the news is the last leg. You know, if you could be remembered.
I think that. Yeah, it is true. It is true. And sometimes it's, yeah. I mean, Hills has had some good ones. Hills always has his decorated though. He had one with like had like an Australian one done, and he had a British flag on it at one point and stuff like that. So I've never really had mine decorated. So
right, well, this is the last question. We'll finish on a high because we could be here all night. What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you relating to your disability?
There's loads. I mean, I couldn't, like, as I said, I'm going to do stand-up. Hopefully I've got an hour out of this. There's so many different things that people have said and done. I remember, like, at the time, I remember at uni, waking up after a night out, and I'd clearly, in my inebriated state, I remember I've clearly gone back to a girl's house, and I woke up and I didn't know where I was. And I remember not knowing where my leg was. And at the time, it was sheer panic. I remember just thinking, where's my leg? Where is it? And I remember it was underneath the curtain. And the idea of how it got under there just made me laugh. I couldn't remember. If I was able to remember, it'd be the greatest story I'd ever tell, but I couldn't remember. But just seeing this foot sticking out underneath a curtain like someone was hiding behind it was pretty funny. That was pretty funny. I remember, I also got put in a canoe at school on my first day of school in like swimming lesson. And the games teacher assumed that I couldn't swim, so he put me in a kayak. and put armbands on me, but he didn't give me an oar. So I was just like spinning in the wind. And every 360 turn, I just see everyone else doing their lessons. And I remember one of the lads, I was like 11, but I was still like, I remember at the start just thinking, how they're getting another 30 kayaks or canoes in here. And like, then I realised it's, and I remember him saying to one of the lads, going, "Sir, why is Alex in the canoe?" And the game teacher was like, "Oh, well, you know, he's got restrictions. He can't swim, and I just wanted him to be involved." And he went, "Sir, he can swim further than me. He's got a load of badges on his shorts." So honestly, I went to primary school with him. He can definitely swim like at least 100 meters. I just remember the panic on this teacher's face. I remember the panic on his face, and I remember him like ripping the armbands off me. And I remember him like kind of chucking me out the kayak into the water. And I remember keeping my head underneath for as long as I could just to like scare him. They were good times. They're good. They're funny stories that I can look back now with fondness as well. So yeah, they as I said, like weird enough, like a lot of people go, "Oh, that games teacher's really ignorant," and I don't think so. I think he didn't. Well, he was slightly maybe, but I look back on that with fondness because he just wanted to involve me. And I can tell you now, from the rest of my school time, never questioned at all. Never questioned at all anything I could do. Did every sport, and yeah, it's a wonderful, really wonderful bloke. And I look back on it with such fondness that time. So yeah, that's funny. But yeah, not being able to find a leg.
in some very dodgy circumstances.
Yeah, some very dodgy circumstances. Yeah.
Well, look, it's been so much fun talking to you, Alex. It really has. Where can we see you next?
So I'm not sure in what order stuff that I'm doing at the moment's going out. So I'm not really sure. I filmed like a couple of different things. Like filming an episode of Celebrity Juice tomorrow night. So that'll be going out in a few weeks' time, in a month's time maybe. So I'll be doing that. And obviously the last leg will be back. We'll be back in the summer. So we're looking forward to that. It's, you know, as I say, it's stressful when we do it, but when we have a break, we miss it. So I look forward to seeing the boys then.
Oh, well, thank you ever so much for giving us your time this evening and escaping kids' bath time and the chaos that is two toddlers in a house.
I've also, by the way, just on the comments, I've seen a few people suggesting that I do a wing walk. Absolutely, I'm open to a challenge, but let's just get me inside the plane first, rather than you know, a lot of people want to stick me straight on the outside from the off. And look, I appreciate that, and I'm sure it'll be fun for you to watch. But let's just get me in. I'll go inside first. Let's get me inside first, then we can move.
Yeah. Take life first, shall we? That's not a bad shout.
Yeah, I just want to put that out there. Look, I'm not shirking it, and I'm very grateful to you guys for having me on. But let's not stick me outside the plane when it's up in the air just yet, eh?
Well, look, really look forward to seeing you again very soon, Alex. You know, we'll love to have you at Blackbush, and we'll definitely follow up on the promise. I can't wait to take you flying. But Alex, for now, thank you. It's been entertaining. It's been funny. It's been open. And you know, I think you made a lot of people laugh this evening. So thank you, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Well, there you go. What fun that was. Alex is just a great guy. He's just putting all his life out before us and letting us all understand that it's absolutely normal to talk about disability, you know, with humour and with fun. And of course, we see that all the time at Airability. So look, that's our Inspirability talk for this evening. We will be back in a couple of weeks. We have a really good panel-related Inspirability talk coming up with another charity that's very close to Airability, FSDP, Flying Scholarships for Disabled People. The guys based over at Fairford who have a lot of money raised for them thanks to a lot of donors that support people who go on a scholarship to achieve new things in their lives through the magic of flying. So we'll be talking to the people that run that charity, and also two of those folks that have actually been through the process of winning a scholarship with FSDP, who also fly for Ability, in fact. So you'll see more information about that on social media. We also have coming up on the 29th of May, don't forget, the Armchair Air Show 2. We've had tens of thousands of views on YouTube and Facebook, and we're going to be pushing hard on that very soon. We've got some very special guests coming up, so stay tuned on our social media channels to see what's coming up there. But for now, I'll leave you to your evenings. Thank you very much. I've been John Windover, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye-bye.